Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking about a new support card that got revealed for Alliance Insight and what does that card mean for certain techs and certain archetypes here in the TCG. As you can see here in the screen, you are watching Ashened and Tistina. These are two TCG exclusive archetypes that debuted last year in 2024 and in late 2023. And sadly, these two archetypes have not seen any meta relevance whatsoever. That's not to say that these archetypes are completely unplayable. It's more to say that they are missing really good quality cards in order to function properly to today's metagame standards. Alliance Insight gave us a new card that actually benefits both archetypes in various ways, and it also has very cool applications. The card that we're talking about is called Chaotic Elements. So Chaotic Elements is a normal spell card that reads, target add 1 level 5 or higher light or dark pyro or aqua monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then, if you have 3 or more pyro and or aqua monsters in your graveyard, you can destroy one card on the field. If your opponent controls a light or dark pyro or aqua monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase. You can only use each effect of Chaotic Elements once per turn. So, it's very clear what Konami wants you to do with this card. This card is a board-breaking card that bolsters the consistency of both Ashened and Tistina. That's not to say that this card does not function with other cards. There are actually two really cool search targets for this card, and I kind of want to talk about them before I talk about Ashen and Tistina. The first card that we can add with this is Danger Nessie. Dangers have not been relevant in the TCG for a while now. However, Dangers are actually a real functionable engine for like mill decks and chaos and combo decks. Funnily enough, before the reveal of this card, I was actually testing a Malice deck involving danger cards. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that, because I actually am legit, I kid you not, testing it out as we speak. But that's it for Dangers. The other really cool card that we can add with Chaotic Elements is Impcantation Chaliceslime. For those who don't know, the Incantation archetype got debuted a couple of years back, and this was actually not a bad engine for ritual decks. It got a little bit overshadowed by Drytrons. Drytrons just became a better engine for ritual decks. However, Incantation Chaliceslime is a really good card. There is a combo involving Incantation Inception that ends on a +4 in card economy before performing your actual ritual plays, and it gets you away from the extra deck lock involving Incantation monsters. So just having a card that is a searcher for it could mean it could have playability. Take note, by the time of this recording, Mitsurugi is about to debut in Supreme Darkness, and who knows, maybe Incantations could be part of an engine for that ritual archetype. Now that I finished talking about Nessie and Chaliceslime, let's talk about Dangers and let's talk about... Forget what I just said. Let's talk about Ashened and let's talk about Tistina. Let's start with Ashened first. You probably will not believe me if I tell you this, But in the Philadelphia regional that happened a little while ago, this deck almost topped that regional. That regional had almost 1,000 players. They had really good players like Jesse Cotton in there as well. And I had a friend of mine, shoutouts to Skyor. He was at that event, and he told me that for the first 5 to 6 rounds, this deck was actually doing really well. So you're probably wondering, what is this? This is Ashened, but it is an Ashened deck involving Ryziel cards. And the Ryziel cards were not even the main focus of the deck. The Ryziel cards were just there as a splashable engine that can make Detonator. And you're probably thinking, well, any deck can do that, right? What makes Ashen so important? What makes Ashen important is that Ashen has an extra deck lock for Pyro monsters with a lot of their consistency cards. Ryziel Detonator is a light Pyro monster. So this card works really well with this archetype. Adding to that, you have just really good rank 4s that just tutor your entire archetype, like Infernal Flame Banshee, Infernal Flame Vixen. Half of the Ryziel monsters being Pyros, at least the 2 main important ones, makes them fusion materials for your other Ashen monsters. And you're probably thinking about the extra deck lock involving X Ryziel or the other Ryziels. You can just normal Ice Ryziel and then like special X Ryziel in a separate occasion alongside Sword Ryziel. So you can just do your fusion plays right before your XYZ plays. And there are some cards here that are really good for board breaking. Like Vados is a really good card. Like against Malice, this card is actually really good. Like it turns off Underground, and not only does it destroy Underground, it pretty much becomes a liability for whatever your opponent makes on their end board. Imagine your opponent just doing the entire Malice combo, and Vados is just there sitting right next to a Terahertz, or right next to a White Binder, or right next to like a red Ramson with an SP Little Knight. Like the moment you get rid of this Vados, their entire board is wiped. And not only that, Vados is a dark monster, and that is a big deal because of super polymerization. Like you can make Mud Dragon on the Swamp, you can make Vados, the Endless Dragon of Darkness, you can make Embers of the Ashen. Granted, you do need Obsidian for that, but you have like 9 to 10 searchers for Obsidian. So getting to this card is not an issue. Another really cool thing is that the extra deck lock with Ashened is only done if you resolve Awakening and Distinguish. And adding to that, a lot of these Ashen monsters are level 4. So if you have Obsidian on the board, you can just special Priestess. Priestess will special summon Shaman. By the way, Shaman is actually a cool card because the extra synergy that it has with Ryziel is that it can recycle all your Ryziel monsters. So let's say into the mid to late game, your Detonator's already in your graveyard. You can just special summon Shaman and use Shaman's effect to put back Ryziel Detonator, put back your Ice Ryziel, put back your X Ryziel back into your deck, and just like keep going. If you recycled an action monster, you can add the Obsidian, and like that just kickstarts your engine. Obviously Bonfire is like super mandatory in this deck, but the reason I'm bringing up this deck is because Chaotic Elements is just another board breaking card that actually powers up this deck. Like I said, this deck almost topped a regional, like a really big regional. Probably the biggest regional that we've had in crossover breakers format. Imagine if they had this card. Yeah, I wouldn't sneeze at this deck. Now let's talk about Tistina. So the thing about Tistina is that Tistina is actually a really good board breaking engine. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's say, for example, you're facing against this typical Raizio board. You see the Dual Drive, you see the Detonator, you see the Raizio Cross, you see like multiple hand traps. We can just put another follow-up Raizio in their hand. And let's look at these cards right here. Like, we're even putting a Solemn in here just like for demonstration purposes. What if I told you this entire Raizio board can be outed with Divine Domain of Tistina? Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Like, Divine Domain can special summon the Crystal God, and for those who don't know what Crystal God does, during your main phase, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position, then send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. If this card is someone's possession, is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can do the same effect again. So, against a board like this one, this card just wipes out their entire board. And let's say, for example, they Raizio Cross to negate it, or they did Solemn Strike to negate it. Okay, then the Crystal God is going to activate again and try to break their entire board. Like, one copy of Divine Domain Tistina can do all of that. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's not enough to break this board. That's not really that good. Okay, now let's add chaotic elements to this equation. Chaotic elements, you can use it to just add Demigod. Demigod can add you the Divine Domain. And let's say your opponent tried to stop you from doing all of that. You can use chaotic elements to just take away the Raizio Detonator, because this is a light attribute pyro monster. So yeah, this is a really, really good card. In the context of Tistina, this card really functions as a board breaker, at least specifically against Raizio. Now let's go back to the main deck. Tistina, didn't look that good at the very beginning because the second wave of support cards that they received were really just mediocre. However, slowly, quietly, we've been getting more support for Tistina that actually indirectly like helps this deck a lot. I'll give you a couple of examples. Example number one would be Varudras. Varudras is a generic rank 10 monster, and Tistina can actually make rank 10s very easily. You can do it thanks to Return of the Tistina. The other thing is the Goblin Biker archetype also works well with Tistina. If you guys are interested in that deck list, I will post it in the description. I did make a video on that deck and like a small showcase of it. In Supreme Darkness, so literally next week we're getting another new card that actually supports Tistina, and that card is called Double Wild. So Double Wild is a quick play spell card that reads, target one level 5 or lower monster you control. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, except monsters with the same original type. Also add a level 10 monster with that original type from your deck to your hand. Then, optionally, you can apply this effect. Discard one card, and if you do, special summon a monster with the same type as the added monster from your hand in defense position. So what does Double Wild do for Tistina? Double Well fixes a really big problem that Tistina already has, and it is accessibility to the Crystal God. So Double Weld is not just a searcher for the Crystal God, this card can also summon it. Another really cool thing about Double Weld is if you don't want to add Crystal God, you can just add the Demigod. And Demigod can just add you another card in their engine. You can use, like, for example, Demigod to just add the Divine Domain, and Divine Domain to just send the Crystal God to the graveyard, and use play of the Tistina on your opponent's turn, and this becomes an interruption. And the interruption that Demigod provides is the same, same effect that Crystal God has to break the Raziel board. So this setup between both gods is actually very feasible now because of Double Wild. But now with Chaotic Element, this just becomes a lot more consistent. Let me know if you want me to actually experiment and like try to play Tistina for the current format. I can definitely make a video on that, like in depth. But yeah, this is all I wanted to showcase you for today. I really like this card. I think this card is actually not that bad. And I don't think it will make these decks meta viable, but it does give them a fighting chance, and it's something that it was very necessary. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.